In today's fast-paced world, have you ever stopped to wonder why, despite all the advancements meant to make life easier, so many of us feel constantly anxious, overwhelmed, or just not at peace? It's as though the more we have, the harder it becomes to truly feel content. But what if the solution isn't out there in more apps, more routines, or more things, but in how we think and respond to what life throws at us? Marcus Aurelius, a powerful Roman emperor and one of history's great Stoic philosophers, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. It's a reminder that our peace doesn't come from controlling the chaotic world around us, but from mastering the way we approach it. In this video, we're diving into the timeless wisdom of Stoicism to uncover 3 common traps that steal your peace, things we all face in one form or another, and how this practical philosophy equips you to overcome them. Along the way, you'll see how shifting your perspective in small but profound ways can help you reclaim your sense of calm, no matter the circumstances. So, let's explore these traps together and discover the Stoic tools that can help you build a life of resilience, clarity, and inner strength. Let's start with one of the most common traps that quietly steals our peace, the constant, often futile, attempt to control things that are completely outside our power. Think about it. How often do you find yourself stressed because the world isn't cooperating with your plans? Maybe it's something as simple as being stuck in traffic when you're already late, frantically wishing the cars ahead would magically clear the road. Or perhaps it's far more personal, like agonizing over how someone perceives you, endlessly replaying a conversation in your mind, wondering if you said the wrong thing. In moments like these, it feels natural to want to take control. If only the world bent to our expectations, then everything would be fine, right? Well, not exactly. The more we try to micromanage the uncontrollable, whether it's traffic, the weather, or even other people's thoughts and actions, the more frustration we create for ourselves. And this is where Stoicism offers us a liberating perspective. One of the most important teachings in Stoicism comes from Epictetus, who introduced the concept of the dichotomy of control. It's simple yet life-changing. There are things within our control and there are things outside of it. Peace, Epictetus would argue, lies in knowing the difference. So let's break this down. What exactly is in your control? According to Stoic philosophy, the answer is surprisingly limited. Your thoughts, your actions, your choices, and your attitude. That's it. Everything else, the opinions of others, the outcome of your efforts, or the random events of the universe, falls firmly outside your control. And here's the kicker: no amount of worrying, anger, or force can change that. Trying to control what isn't yours to command is like trying to hold back the tide with your bare hands. It's exhausting and ultimately pointless. Instead, Stoicism encourages us to focus on what we can control, which is how we respond to whatever life hands us. Let's say you're stuck in that traffic jam. You can't move the cars ahead of you, but you can decide how to use that time. Will you let frustration boil over and ruin your day, or will you take a deep breath, put on an audiobook, and use the moment to learn something new? Or when a coworker criticizes your work, will you spiral into defensiveness and self-doubt, or will you choose to see their feedback as an opportunity to grow? Shifting your focus in this way doesn't just reduce stress, it gives you back a sense of control, because now the power lies in your hands, not in the unpredictable whims of the outside world. Here's a practical way to internalize the dichotomy of control. Whenever you're faced with a stressful situation, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, remind yourself that worrying won't change a thing. Instead, redirect your energy toward what is within your control, your mindset, your actions, and how you choose to move forward. Imagine the freedom of letting go of everything you can't influence. The noise of the world doesn't have the same grip on you when you decide it's not your job to control it. Ultimately, understanding this principle isn't about becoming passive or indifferent. It's about clarity, knowing where to focus your energy and where to let go. Epictetus wasn't suggesting that we stop caring about outcomes. He was showing us the path to freedom from unnecessary suffering. So the next time you find yourself caught in the trap of trying to control the uncontrollable, remember, it's not the situation itself that's robbing your peace, it's your attachment to controlling something you never could. And when you let go of that attachment, you open the door to a deeper sense of calm and resilience. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." It's such a simple statement, yet it carries profound wisdom. Think about it. Life, as unpredictable as it is, will throw countless things your way, some good, some bad, and many completely beyond your influence. You can't stop the storm from coming, nor can you undo past mistakes or manipulate how others behave. The events themselves don't determine your peace of mind. Instead, it's your reaction to those events that has the real power to shape your emotional state. The Stoics deeply understood this truth, and they actively trained themselves to master their responses to life's challenges. To them, emotional turmoil wasn't caused by the events themselves, but by their perception of the events. For instance, losing a job might seem like a devastating blow to one person, while another might see it as an opportunity to start fresh or pursue a path they've always wanted. The difference lies not in what happens, but in the lens through which it's viewed. This distinction empowers us to take ownership of our reactions and, in turn, our peace. But how exactly did the Stoics train themselves to let go of what they couldn't control? It wasn't something that happened overnight. It was a daily practice, a mental discipline that they cultivated over time. One of their core practices involved constantly reflecting on events and separating them into two categories, those they could influence and those they couldn't. By doing this, they created a mental filter, allowing them to focus their energy only on the things within their power, such as their thoughts, choices, and actions, while releasing any attachment to outcomes or external factors. For example, imagine a Stoic waking up to terrible weather on a day they planned an important trip. Instead of cursing the rain or spiraling into frustration, they would pause and recognize that the weather is entirely outside their control. What is within their control, however, is how they respond to the situation. They might adapt by rescheduling, adjusting their plans, or simply accepting the rain as it is and continuing with their day. By choosing their response, they maintain their inner peace rather than letting the storm dictate their emotions. Training the mind to operate this way doesn't just reduce stress, it transforms the way you experience life. The Stoics often used visualization techniques to prepare themselves for difficult situations. Before starting their day, they would engage in a practice called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. They imagined potential challenges or disruptions, losing their possessions, facing criticism, getting ill, to remind themselves that such events are part of life and beyond their control. This wasn't about dwelling on negativity but building resilience. By mentally rehearsing their responses, they were better equipped to face challenges calmly and rationally when they arose. Think about the implications of this in your own life. How many moments of stress or frustration could be diffused by simply pausing and shifting your perspective? Let's say a friend cancels plans at the last minute. You could feel hurt, make assumptions about their intentions, and let your mood spiral downward. Or you could take a Stoic approach, recognize that their decision isn't within your control, avoid assigning unnecessary meaning to the situation, and use the unexpected free time to do something else you enjoy. The situation remains the same, but your chosen reaction changes everything. Incorporating this mindset into your daily life doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is fine when it's not. Instead, it's about recognizing that emotions often arise from how we interpret events, not from the events themselves. You can feel disappointment, anger, or sadness, but you don't have to let those feelings consume you or dictate your actions. By focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, your attitude, and your response, you reclaim your power in the face of life's unpredictability. So, when you reflect on the words of Epictetus, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Remember that you hold more power than you might realize. You can't rewrite life's script, but you are the author of your response. And with practice, this shift in perspective can unlock a deeper sense of calm and resilience, no matter what comes your way. So, how can we apply this Stoic idea of focusing only on what's within our control in a way that's practical and manageable in our modern lives? It's one thing to understand the concept intellectually, but it's a whole different challenge to put it into practice when emotions run high, when you're feeling overwhelmed, or when life throws unexpected curveballs. Fortunately, the Stoics left us not just ideas but actionable strategies to help train our minds and shift our perspectives. Let's explore a few of these practices and how you can use them to navigate challenges like workplace stress, relationship struggles, or even everyday annoyances with greater clarity and peace. One highly effective tool is journaling. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, practiced self-reflection through writing, using it as a way to examine their thoughts and actions. You can do the same by dedicating just a few minutes each day to journal about what's within your control versus what's not. For example, if you're feeling stressed about a big presentation at work, write it out. List all the things you're worried about: whether your boss will approve, whether the audience will engage, or whether the tech will work smoothly. Then, ask yourself, which of these can I influence and which can I not? Maybe you can control how prepared you are, how you structure your presentation, or your tone of voice, but you can't control your boss's mood or every technical hiccup. Writing this out helps you visually separate what you can act on from what you need to let go of. This single exercise can bring incredible mental clarity, helping you focus your energy where it matters. Another powerful strategy is to reframe your perspective in the moment. When something outside of your control causes stress, like a colleague taking credit for your work, for instance, pause and ask yourself, is my reaction to this helping me or hurting me? The Stoics believed that our perception shapes our emotional responses, so by reframing the situation, we take back control. In this case, instead of ruminating on how unfair it was, you could focus on what's within your power, calmly addressing the issue with your colleague, documenting your contributions for future projects, or keeping your focus on doing excellent work moving forward. This kind of reframing doesn't justify bad behavior, but it frees you from being consumed by frustration or bitterness, emotions that only rob you of your peace. Let's look at relationships, an area where the need to control often shows up. Whether it's with a partner, a friend, or even a family member, we often fall into the trap of wishing others would act a certain way. Maybe you wish your partner would be more affectionate or your friend would communicate more often. While it's fine to express your feelings, Stoicism reminds us that we can't control how others respond to us. What we can control is how we show up in the relationship. Are you being clear about your needs? Are you honoring your boundaries? Instead of fixating on how someone else should change, focus on living in alignment with your own values. This doesn't mean you should accept poor treatment or ignore problems. It means releasing the emotional burden of trying to force others to act a certain way and choosing instead to take care of your own actions and well-being. Here's another modern example dealing with news or social media overwhelm. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of global events or the constant stream of negativity online. The truth is, you can't control most of what you see in the news, but you can control how much you consume and how you choose to respond. Maybe that means setting limits on your screen time or choosing to take small, meaningful actions in your community instead of being paralyzed by the vastness of global issues. By focusing on what's within your reach, you're not ignoring the world's problems, but you're also not letting them erode your peace. Finally, I want to encourage you to take a moment of reflection. Think about an area in your life where you're trying to control the uncontrollable. Maybe it's a relationship, your job, or even how people view you. Ask yourself, what would it feel like to let go of that burden? What small action could you take today to shift your focus to something you can influence? By embracing this mindset, you'll find that peace isn't about fixing the world around you, it's about mastering the world within you. Let's talk about the second trap that often robs us of our peace: attachment. And this one is sneaky because it disguises itself as the pursuit of happiness. We're constantly told that success, recognition, or owning the latest and greatest things will fill our lives with joy. But how often does that really happen? Think about it. How many times have you set a goal thinking, once I achieve this, I'll finally be happy, only to reach it and feel underwhelmed? Maybe it was a promotion, a new car, or even something as simple as posting on social media and waiting for those likes to roll in. In the moment, it feels good. There's that rush of achievement, of validation. But it doesn't last, does it? Within days, maybe even hours, the satisfaction fades and you're left chasing the next thing. It's exhausting, yet so many of us unknowingly fall into this cycle. The Stoics understood this all too well. In fact, they warned that attachment, whether to material possessions, external validation, or fleeting pleasures, is one of the greatest sources of human anxiety. Why? Because when we tie our sense of peace and happiness to things that are temporary and outside our control, we put ourselves on an emotional roller coaster. When we have those things, we live in constant fear of losing them. And when we don't have them, we feel incomplete, like something's missing. It's no wonder we struggle to find lasting contentment. To the Stoics, the solution wasn't about rejecting material things or external rewards altogether. They didn't believe you had to give up your job, your home, or your relationships to live a peaceful life. Instead, they taught us to view these things as temporary and replaceable. Epictetus advised, never depend on the admiration of others. There is no strength in it. Personal merit cannot be derived from an external source. In other words, your value doesn't come from what you own or how others see you. It comes from how you live, how you think, and how you align your actions with your principles. Let's unpack this with a practical example. Imagine you've just bought a beautiful new smartphone. It's everything you wanted, sleek and full of cutting-edge features. You feel proud to own it, maybe even a little superior. But then, one day, you accidentally drop it and the screen shatters. That joy you felt when you first got the phone. Gone in an instant, replaced by frustration or regret. This is the trap of attachment. It's the emotional investment in something that was always temporary. A Stoic, in contrast, might enjoy the phone while it functions, but they wouldn't tie their sense of well-being to it. If they dropped it, they'd remind themselves it was just an object, something replaceable, and move on. The same principle applies to external validation. Seeking approval from others often feels rewarding in the short term, but it comes at a cost. Think about how much energy we put into crafting the perfect image, whether it's at work, in our relationships, or online, just to gain recognition or praise. And then, when we don't get the reaction we hoped for, it stings. Instead of living authentically, we end up living for the approval of others, handing over our peace of mind to something we can't control. The Stoics would call this a losing game. So how do we break free from this trap? The first step is awareness. The next time you find yourself clinging to something, a possession, someone's opinion of you, or even a fleeting pleasure, pause and ask yourself, if I lost this tomorrow, would I still be okay? This question helps you see the temporary nature of the things you're attached to, reminding you that they're not the source of lasting peace. Another Stoic practice is to mentally rehearse the idea of impermanence. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on how everything we enjoy is borrowed from our possessions to our relationships, so that we learn to appreciate them without being consumed by the fear of losing them. Ultimately, this practice isn't about detachment in the sense of not caring. It's about valuing these things appropriately, understanding that they can enhance your life without defining it. When you stop relying on material possessions or external validation for your happiness, you reclaim your inner stability. You realize that true contentment doesn't come from what you have, it comes from how you choose to think and live. And that is something no one and nothing can take away from you. Seneca, one of the most profound voices in Stoic philosophy, had a lot to say about wealth and attachment. And while he was a man of material means, having amassed considerable riches during his lifetime, his writings reveal that he viewed wealth very differently than many of us do today. Seneca believed that true wealth wasn't found in the abundance of possessions, but in achieving a state of inner contentment. He famously wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Let that sink in for a moment. Fewer wants, not more things, are what lead to peace. This challenges the pervasive idea we're often sold, that our happiness is directly proportional to how much we own or achieve. Let's unpack this. When Seneca talks about having few wants, he's pointing at a mindset of sufficiency, where we learn to be content with what we have instead of endlessly craving more. Craving, after all, is a trap. No matter how much you acquire a bigger house, a newer car, or a higher salary, there's always something else just beyond your reach. Modern life thrives on this cycle. Advertisements are constantly telling us we're lacking. Our phones aren't fast enough, our wardrobes aren't trendy enough, our lives aren't exciting enough. And so we chase, believing that just one more thing will close the gap and finally make us happy. But as Seneca would remind us, the more we chase, the more restless we become. Why? Because the root of the problem isn't external, it's internal. It's our unchecked desires that create the feeling of lack, not the absence of material wealth. Think about it this way. Have you ever noticed how some of the richest people in the world seem perpetually dissatisfied, always striving for more power, more influence, or more of whatever they're chasing? While at the same time, there are others with far less who seem truly happy, living simple lives filled with gratitude and peace. Seneca would argue it's not the circumstances that make the difference, it's the mindset. When you detach from excessive desires and learn to appreciate what you already have, that's when you become truly wealthy, because now nothing external can control your sense of fulfillment. But you might be wondering, does this mean we should abandon ambition, give up on achieving more, or stop trying to improve our lives? Not at all. Stoicism never suggests rejecting wealth or success outright. What it warns against is becoming so attached to them that they enslave us. Seneca himself advised people to enjoy their fortunes but not to depend on them for their happiness. He even went as far as to recommend practicing voluntary poverty as an exercise to strengthen the mind. The idea was to strip away comforts, at least temporarily, so you could remind yourself that you don't need those things to survive. For example, Seneca would wear simple clothes and eat modest meals to train his mind to remain calm and content, even if life took an unexpected turn. By doing this, he wasn't rejecting his wealth, but instead proving to himself that it didn't own him. So, how can we apply Seneca's wisdom in our daily lives? Start by identifying one area where you feel the pull of attachment. Maybe it's an item you've been eyeing, a luxury handbag, the latest gadget, or even a bigger house. Ask yourself, do I really need this to be happy, or is it just something I've been conditioned to want? Then, practice gratitude for what you already have. Seneca believed that appreciating the present moment is one of the greatest antidotes to the restlessness created by material desires. Remind yourself that everything you have right now, your relationships, your health, your ability to think and act, is already enough to bring joy if you let it. Ultimately, detachment fosters peace because it frees you from the endless cycle of craving and disappointment. When you stop tying your happiness to what you lack and start embracing the wealth of a contented mind, you'll discover that true abundance is something that can never be taken away from you. In Seneca's own words, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. And with that perspective, you realize the key to wealth is already within your grasp. Let's take a moment to explore how we can put the Stoic teachings on attachment into practice. It's one thing to understand the concept of detachment intellectually, but as with most things in life, the real transformation happens when we actively apply these ideas to our daily routines. The Stoics believed that peace comes when we loosen the grip of attachment, whether it's to physical possessions, fleeting pleasures, or external validation. And one of the best ways to achieve this is by practicing what they called voluntary discomfort or imagining loss. Let's start with voluntary discomfort. This might sound counterintuitive at first. Why would you willingly make life harder on yourself? But the idea isn't about creating unnecessary suffering, it's about building mental resilience. If we continually shield ourselves from discomfort and cling to our luxuries, we allow these attachments to take hold of us. The Stoics would argue that by occasionally stepping outside of comfort, we remind ourselves that we're capable of thriving even without those attachments. For example, Seneca recommended sleeping on the floor instead of your bed for a night or two, or eating the simplest, most basic meals for a few days, like bread and water. These small acts of discomfort aren't meant to punish you, but to show you that you can live without the things you've grown accustomed to. And when you practice this regularly, luxuries stop feeling like necessities. They become things you enjoy while remaining fully aware that your happiness doesn't depend on them. You can try this yourself, starting small. Let's say you're deeply attached to your morning latte from the fancy coffee shop. It's part of your daily routine, and skipping it might seem unthinkable. But what if you went a week without it? Instead of buying your usual drink, make coffee at home or even skip it altogether. How does it feel? At first, you might crave it or feel like something's missing. But over time, you'll likely realize that your day can still be just as fulfilling, and perhaps your attachment to that small luxury will start to loosen. This isn't about permanently depriving yourself. It's about training your mind to be less dependent on external comforts. Another powerful Stoic practice is imagining loss. This might sound grim, but it's deeply valuable for fostering appreciation and reducing attachment. The idea is to take a moment to visualize losing something or someone you love. For instance, think of a prized possession, maybe your favorite watch or phone. Imagine it being misplaced or broken. Or, even closer to the heart, consider a meaningful relationship in your life and imagine how you'd feel if that person were suddenly gone. This exercise isn't meant to create fear, it's to remind you of the impermanence of everything in life. When you recognize that everything you enjoy is fleeting, two things happen. First, you appreciate it more deeply in the present, and second, you begin to let go of the desperate need to hold on. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Now let's bring this back to you. Take a moment to reflect. Is there an area of your life where attachment is holding you back from peace? Maybe it's a material item you feel you couldn't live without, like your car or a specific luxury. Maybe it's a habit of looking to social media for likes and comments to feel validated. Or maybe it's even the idea of a certain identity, like being seen as successful or admired by others. Ask yourself how much of your energy is tied up in maintaining or protecting this attachment, and what would happen if it were gone tomorrow? Would you feel lost, or could you adapt? These questions are worth sitting with because often our attachments are so deeply ingrained that we don't even notice how much control they have over us. The beauty of these Stoic practices is that they allow you to take small, manageable steps toward freedom. You don't have to completely give up your comforts or detach from everything overnight. Instead, start by experimenting. Maybe give up a luxury for a week or imagine being without something you value for a day. Notice how it feels, and more importantly, notice the strength and clarity that comes from recognizing that your peace isn't reliant on those things. This isn't about rejecting life's pleasures, it's about enjoying them without being defined by them. Because when you free yourself from attachment, you don't just protect your peace, you gain the ability to truly live in the moment and appreciate the beauty of what you have right here, right now. Have you ever caught yourself spiraling into overthinking after someone made an offhand comment? Maybe a colleague said something as simple as, "You look tired today," and suddenly you're replaying it in your mind, wondering if it was criticism, if you appear unprofessional, or if you unintentionally gave off the wrong impression. Or maybe you've judged someone else too quickly. A stranger cut you off in traffic, and your immediate thought is that they're rude or inconsiderate. Later, you reflect and realize you don't know their circumstances. Perhaps they were rushing to an emergency. These moments of judgment, whether directed toward others, a situation, or even ourselves, aren't just fleeting thoughts, they're traps that can lead to unnecessary conflict, frustration, and emotional turmoil. The Stoics recognized this trap and taught that negative judgment often arises not from the events themselves, but from the labels and assumptions we attach to them. Epictetus put it simply, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. In other words, it's not the colleague's comment that causes stress, but how we interpret it. It's not the stranger's driving that makes us angry, but the narrative we construct about their motives. These judgments, unchecked, can poison our peace. They make us overreact to situations, damage relationships, and even erode our self-esteem when turned inward. So how do we escape this trap? The Stoics offer us a powerful antidote, the practice of suspending judgment. This involves stripping away the assumptions and emotional reactions we so often impose on events and focusing solely on the observable facts. Let's revisit the example of the colleague who said, "You look tired." The fact is, they made a neutral observation, that's all. Any additional meaning, whether they think you're unprofessional, whether they meant to criticize you, is something your mind added. The Stoics remind us that we don't have to believe every interpretation our brain offers. By pausing and consciously separating fact from assumption, we can regain control over our emotions and respond more calmly. Practicing this in real time takes effort, but it's incredibly freeing. The next time you feel the sting of a comment or find yourself judging someone else, try this. Pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what do I know to be true? Focus only on the facts. In the case of the stranger in traffic, the fact is they changed lanes ahead of you. That's it. Whether they're rude or careless is an assumption, and assumptions almost always create unnecessary anger or stress. When you release that story, you also release the emotional weight that comes with it. This practice doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent, it's about clarity. You're not giving people a free pass for bad behavior or ignoring problems. You're choosing to see situations as they are, without the drama your mind might add. And this mindset applies not just to how we judge others, but also to how we judge ourselves. Negative self-talk, like calling yourself a failure after a mistake, is just another form of judgment. The Stoics would urge us to stick to the facts. Did you make an error? Sure. But does that mean you're incapable or worthless? Absolutely not. By focusing on the truth rather than harsh interpretations, we can address challenges with a sense of calm and self-compassion. Another exercise the Stoics practiced was to remind themselves frequently that every person, including ourselves, is fallible. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" This reflection encourages humility and empathy. It's a way of seeing others and even yourself through a lens of understanding rather than judgment. Ultimately, suspending judgment isn't about ignoring reality. It's about seeing reality clearly. It's about quieting the noise of assumptions, fears, and overthinking so that you can approach life and people with calmness and wisdom. The reward: a greater peace of mind, fewer conflicts, and a deeper connection to both yourself and others. And isn't that what we're all seeking? So the next time you feel judgment creeping into your thoughts, whether aimed outward or inward, remember to pause, separate fact from fiction, and choose clarity over chaos. Peace is found not in controlling others, but in mastering the lens through which you see the world. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers and Roman emperors, offered a powerful piece of wisdom that perfectly addresses the trap of negative judgment. He wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." At first glance, this might sound like a double standard. Why hold ourselves to a higher standard while letting others off the hook? But what Marcus was really getting at was the importance of balancing accountability with compassion. It's about recognizing our own agency over our actions and choices while practicing understanding for the imperfections and struggles of those around us. Let's break this down. When Marcus says to be strict with yourself, he's inviting us to focus inward. Instead of obsessing over what others are doing wrong or where they've fallen short, Stoicism urges us to ask, how can I improve my own thoughts, choices, and behavior? This doesn't mean being overly critical or harsh toward ourselves. Rather, it's about taking full responsibility for the one thing we can truly control: our own actions. Imagine how much unnecessary stress we create by trying to fix others or judging them for not meeting our expectations, when the truth is we can't control them. By shifting our energy inward, we empower ourselves to focus on what we can influence: our habits, our mindset, and how we show up in the world. On the other side of this philosophy is the call to be tolerant with others. The Stoics teach us that everyone is fighting battles we can't see, shaped by circumstances we may not fully understand. Behind someone's rudeness, impatience, or failure to meet our standards might be exhaustion, a personal struggle, or simply a different way of seeing the world. Instead of rushing to judgment, Marcus encourages us to approach these moments with empathy. When someone cuts you off in traffic or snaps at you during a conversation, the automatic response is often anger or frustration. But instead of assuming the worst, thinking they're selfish or hostile, what if you paused and considered that they might be having a tough day or dealing with something you can't see? This small mental shift not only softens your judgment of others, but also spares you from unnecessary emotional turmoil. Reframing your judgments isn't about excusing bad behavior or avoiding accountability. It's about creating harmony, both internally and externally. When you stop taking others' actions so personally, you detach from the emotional charge that often accompanies judgment. You conserve your energy for things that truly matter, like improving yourself or handling situations constructively. And on the interpersonal level, extending tolerance and compassion fosters better relationships. It creates space for understanding, collaboration, and even mutual growth instead of tension and conflict. Here's a practical way to apply this in your daily life. The next time you feel judgment rising, whether it's directed at someone else or yourself, pause and ask two simple questions. First, what might this person be going through that I don't know about? This helps you replace assumptions with curiosity and compassion. Second, what's the best action I can take in this moment? Redirecting your focus to actions rather than anger instantly puts you in a more constructive mindset. Let's say a coworker misses a deadline that directly impacts your project. Instead of thinking they're so unreliable, consider that they might be overwhelmed with other priorities. Then, instead of stewing in frustration, ask yourself what step you can take, whether it's checking in with them to offer support, communicating a clear boundary for next time, or focusing on a solution. This approach not only reduces conflict but also strengthens collaboration and trust over time. The brilliance of Marcus Aurelius's advice is that it's a blueprint for peace. By being strict with yourself, you take responsibility for your own growth, and by being tolerant with others, you create space for compassion and understanding. Together, these two practices allow you to move through life with greater harmony, both within yourself and with those around you. It's a reminder that judgment doesn't have to divide us. When reframed, it can be an opportunity to connect, understand, and grow. Now that we've explored the trap of negative judgment and how it disrupts our inner peace, let's shift to something empowering, practical steps you can take to break free from this pattern and approach situations with clarity and compassion. Judgment, whether toward others or ourselves, often feels automatic, like a reflex. But the truth is, with a little practice, you can train your mind to respond differently. So let's dive into some simple yet powerful exercises that can help you overcome this trap and replace judgment with understanding. The first practice is observing your thoughts without labeling them. Often, we don't even realize how quickly our minds jump to conclusions. A comment from a coworker, a post we see online, or even a passing glance from a stranger can trigger an entire story in our heads, one that might not even be true. To counteract this, try this exercise. The next time you notice yourself judging someone or something, take a mental step back and observe the thought as if you were watching it from the outside. Instead of labeling it as good or bad, rude or kind, simply acknowledge it for what it is, a thought. For example, if you find yourself thinking, "That person shouldn't wear something like that," pause and reframe it as, "I've noticed I'm making a judgment about their clothing." By creating that distance, you start to break the automatic cycle of judgment and replace it with curiosity and neutrality. A second exercise is practicing gratitude for others' positive qualities. When our minds fixate on judgment, it's often because we're zooming in on what we think is wrong. But what if you flipped that lens and intentionally looked for what's right? For instance, instead of focusing on a friend's habit of always being late, remind yourself of their warmth, their sense of humor, or the way they're always there when it matters most. This shift in focus not only helps you release frustration, but it also strengthens your relationships and fosters a sense of appreciation. You can even make this a daily habit. Each evening, take a minute to think of one positive quality about someone you interacted with that day, no matter how small. Over time, this rewires your brain to look for the good instead of defaulting to criticism. Now, let's talk about social media, a place where judgment seems to thrive. Maybe you've come across a post that sparks an immediate reaction, whether it's anger, envy, or disagreement. Instead of reacting impulsively, try pausing before you respond. Ask yourself, what's the most constructive way to interpret this? Or, is this worth my emotional energy? For example, if you see a picture of someone flashing their luxurious vacation, instead of jumping to jealousy or thinking they're showing off, consider that they might simply be celebrating a moment they're excited about. This isn't about denying your feelings, but choosing to approach the situation with a calmer, more generous mindset. And if you're tempted to comment or reply in frustration, take a deep breath and ask yourself, will this help or hurt? Often, walking away from a reactive response is the kindest thing you can do for both yourself and others. Another essential practice is learning to forgive yourself for mistakes. Negative judgments aren't just something we project onto others, they're often directed inward. How many times have you been overly harsh with yourself for saying the wrong thing, missing a deadline, or forgetting something important? The Stoics remind us that we're all imperfect and mistakes are simply part of being human. Instead of dwelling on them, focus on what you can learn and how you can move forward. The next time you catch yourself criticizing your own actions, try saying, I made a mistake and that's okay. What's one thing I can do to improve next time? This simple shift turns self-judgment into self-growth and strengthens your peace of mind. Finally, I encourage you to take a moment right now to reflect. Think about a recent judgment you made, whether it was about someone else or yourself. How did it make you feel? Was it constructive, or did it create stress or tension? Now imagine how you could have approached the situation differently. What if, instead of jumping to conclusions, you paused and observed your thought? What if, instead of focusing on what went wrong, you looked for what went right? By reflecting on these moments, you're already taking a crucial step toward changing your patterns. At its heart, the practice of moving past negative judgment isn't about being perfect, it's about being mindful. It's about noticing your thoughts, questioning them, and choosing responses that align with the peace and clarity you're striving for. And with each small step, you'll find yourself building a calmer, more compassionate inner world, one that can handle life's challenges with grace. Now, let's talk about awareness, perhaps the most essential tool in avoiding the traps that rob us of our peace. It's the foundation of all the Stoic practices we've discussed, because without awareness, how can you even begin to recognize when you're caught in the cycle of attachment, judgment, or trying to control the uncontrollable? Awareness is the light that allows you to see those mental traps clearly, and it's the first step toward breaking free from them. At its core, awareness is about mindfulness, about being fully present in the moment, rather than letting your mind get pulled into regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. The Stoics often emphasize the value of focusing on the here and now. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." Why? Because the present is the only moment where we actually have power. The past is gone, the future hasn't happened yet, and dwelling on either one is a surefire way to lose your inner peace. Awareness keeps you grounded, helping you notice not only what's happening around you, but also how your mind is reacting to it. Here's a modern example. Imagine you're sitting at work and you receive an email from your boss with abrupt feedback. Immediately, your mind starts spinning. What did I do wrong? Are they disappointed in me? Am I going to lose my job? Without awareness, these thoughts can quickly spiral, dragging you into anxiety and self-doubt. But if you cultivate mindfulness, you can catch yourself in that moment. You can pause, take a deep breath, and recognize the emotional reaction unfolding in your mind. Then, instead of getting consumed by it, you can observe it. I notice I'm feeling anxious about this email. What's within my control here? With this awareness, you're less likely to overreact and more likely to approach the situation calmly and rationally, whether that means clarifying the feedback with your boss or reflecting on how to improve. So, how do we cultivate this kind of awareness in our daily lives? The Stoics practiced it through reflection and intentional living, and there are several ways you can integrate these habits into your modern routine. One powerful tool is journaling, a cornerstone of Stoic practice. Both Seneca and Marcus Aurelius frequently wrote down their thoughts to examine their emotions, decisions, and responses to life's challenges. You can do the same by setting aside 5 or 10 minutes each day to reflect. Ask yourself questions like, what situations tested my peace today? How did I respond? Was I focused on what I could control, or did I let my mind get swept away by judgment or fear? The simple act of writing helps you become more aware of your inner patterns and creates the space to approach future situations more mindfully. Another practice is meditation, which aligns beautifully with the Stoic emphasis on being present. You don't need to sit for hours or adopt a complex routine. Even a few minutes of focused breathing can make a difference. Find a quiet spot, close your eyes, and focus on your breath as it flows in and out. When your mind inevitably wanders, maybe to worries about tomorrow's deadlines or replaying an awkward conversation from earlier, gently guide it back to your breath. This practice strengthens your ability to notice when your thoughts are drifting, so you can catch yourself before falling into those mental traps. Over time, it builds a kind of mental muscle, making it easier to stay present even in stressful or overwhelming situations. Mindfulness can also be practiced in tiny, everyday moments. For instance, the next time you're stuck in traffic, instead of letting your mind race with frustration or running through your mental to-do list, try anchoring yourself in the present. Notice the sensation of your hands on the steering wheel, the sounds around you, or the feeling of your breath. These small moments of presence add up and train your mind to stay grounded, even when life doesn't go as planned. Ultimately, awareness isn't about forcing your mind to be perfect. It's not about shutting out distractions or never feeling anxious. Instead, it's about noticing, about paying attention to your thoughts, your emotions, and your surroundings without judgment. It's the gentle act of stepping back and saying, "Oh, that's what's happening right now." From there, you reclaim your power to choose how you respond. And that's where true peace begins. By cultivating awareness, you give yourself the clarity to navigate life with calm, strength, and purpose, one present moment at a time. Let's explore one of the most life-changing skills the Stoics mastered: reframing challenges as opportunities. This concept lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy, and it's one of the most powerful tools for maintaining peace and clarity when life becomes unpredictable. The idea is simple but profound. What if, instead of viewing hardships as setbacks or reasons for despair, we saw them as opportunities for growth, for mastering resilience, and for becoming stronger? As the great Stoic teacher Epictetus said, difficulties show a person who they truly are. In other words, adversity isn't something to fear or resent. It's the training ground that shapes us into our best selves. Let's take a real-world example: losing a job. At first glance, this is the kind of situation that can feel overwhelming and deeply unsettling. You might worry about your financial stability, your sense of identity, or what the future holds. It's natural to feel those emotions initially, but here's where reframing comes into play. Instead of seeing the loss only as a disaster, ask yourself, what opportunities does this situation open up for me? What can I learn from it? Maybe this is an invitation to explore a new career path you've always been curious about but felt too secure to pursue. Perhaps it's a moment to reassess your priorities, spend more time with loved ones, or develop new skills that could make you even stronger in the long run. Suddenly, what felt like the end of the road transforms into the beginning of a new one. This approach isn't about denying the difficulty of the situation. Stoicism doesn't ask us to pretend that challenges don't hurt or that setbacks aren't real. Instead, it teaches us to acknowledge the difficulty while choosing to focus on what we can gain from the experience. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on this in his meditations. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is one of the most empowering insights Stoicism offers. The very obstacle in your path can become the path itself if you choose to see it that way. Think of it like weightlifting. When you lift a heavy weight at the gym, it's challenging. Your muscles strain and it's uncomfortable. but it's precisely that resistance that strengthens your body over time. Life's challenges work the same way. They're the resistance that strengthens your character, your perseverance, and your ability to adapt. Losing a job, for instance, might push you out of your comfort zone, encouraging you to develop resilience, creativity, or even humility. These are traits that will serve you not just in this one situation, but in all areas of life. Reframing challenges as opportunities is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. You can start small. The next time something doesn't go as planned, maybe you miss a bus, argue with a friend, or face a tough deadline at work, pause and ask yourself, what can I learn or gain from this? Sure, missing the bus is frustrating, but maybe it gives you a chance to take a walk and clear your mind. An argument with a friend can be painful, but it might also highlight areas in the relationship that could grow stronger through honest communication. A tight deadline can be stressful, but it's also an opportunity to prove to yourself that you're capable of pushing through challenges. To take this even further, the Stoics encourage us to actively view adversity as training. Just like an athlete prepares for a big game by practicing under pressure, we can approach life's difficulties as opportunities to sharpen our mental and emotional tools. Let's say you're facing a situation that feels unfair. Maybe a colleague is taking credit for your work. Instead of reacting with frustration or resentment, frame it as a chance to practice patience and self-control. When life throws obstacles in your path, think of it as a sparring partner, pushing you to refine your ability to stay calm, focused, and grounded. Ultimately, reframing challenges as opportunities is an act of reclaiming your power. It's about recognizing that while you can't always choose what happens to you, you can always choose how you respond, and in that choice lies incredible freedom. As you face your own challenges, big or small, remember this: adversity doesn't have to rob you of your peace. With the Stoic skill of reframing, it can actually help you build the kind of strength and resilience that leads to lasting inner calm. What stands in the way truly can become the way. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." At first glance, this quote might seem puzzling. How can an obstacle actually advance action? How does what stands in the way become the way? To the Stoics, this wasn't just a poetic expression. It was a mindset, a mental framework that could turn even the most frustrating challenges into opportunities for growth, clarity, and inner peace. Let's break this down and explore how this transformative perspective can reshape the way we navigate life's obstacles. When Marcus says, "The impediment to action advances action," he's inviting us to view challenges not as roadblocks that stop us in our tracks, but as stepping stones that can propel us forward. In life, obstacles are inevitable. They show up in ways big and small: unexpected setbacks at work, conflicts in our relationships, personal failures, or even health struggles. While it's normal to feel frustrated or discouraged when these obstacles arise, the Stoics teach us to look at them differently. Instead of seeing them as barriers, what if we viewed them as essential parts of life's flow? What if, instead of resisting them, we embrace them as opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient? Imagine, for instance, that you're pursuing a goal, a promotion. Let's say everything seems to be going well until you're assigned a challenging project that feels overwhelming. You might initially think, this is an obstacle. It's going to slow me down or even prevent me from succeeding. But with the mindset Marcus Aurelius describes, you could reframe this situation entirely. The project isn't holding you back, it's actually pushing you forward, giving you the chance to develop new skills, prove your capabilities, and demonstrate your perseverance. In this sense, the obstacle becomes the way. Instead of resisting the challenge, you turn it into the very thing that advances you toward your goal. This mindset leads to peace because it aligns you with the reality of life. The Stoics understood that struggle and adversity are not exceptions to the rule, they are the rule. Life is a constant flow of challenges, and trying to fight against that truth only leads to frustration and suffering. But when you shift your perspective and accept that obstacles are an inherent part of the journey, you stop seeing them as threats. Instead, you see them as opportunities to adapt, to reflect, and to grow. This doesn't mean the challenges become easy or painless, but it does mean they no longer need to rob you of your inner calm. Let's take another example to make this more relatable. Imagine you're recovering from a sports injury. At first, it feels like a complete roadblock to your progress. It limits your physical abilities and forces you to pause activities you love. But if you apply Marcus Aurelius's wisdom, you can start to see this injury as an opportunity for growth. Perhaps it's a chance to focus on rebuilding your strength step by step, learning patience along the way. Maybe it pushes you to develop a deeper understanding of how your body works or opens your mind to exploring other passions while you heal. The injury, while difficult, has now given you an unexpected path forward. In this way, what once seemed like an impediment has transformed into a source of personal growth. Adopting this mindset isn't always easy. It takes practice to pause and reframe challenges instead of reacting with frustration or resistance. But the more you engage with this practice, the more natural it becomes. Start small. The next time you face a minor obstacle like a delayed flight or a cancelled plan, pause and ask yourself, how could this setback actually advance me? What can I learn or gain from this experience? With time, you'll find that this way of thinking begins to shift not just how you respond to life's smaller inconveniences, but how you approach its bigger challenges as well. What Marcus Aurelius teaches us here is a subtle but profound truth. Obstacles don't have to be the end of the road. They can become the road. When you stop seeing challenges as interruptions and start viewing them as part of life's natural flow, you tap into a deeper sense of calm and resilience. You realize that even in the face of adversity, there's always a way forward, and often that way is the obstacle itself. By embracing this mindset, you don't just navigate life's challenges, you transform them into stepping stones toward peace, strength, and personal growth. Reframing obstacles as opportunities is more than just a mental exercise, it's a practice that requires consistency and intention. Like any habit, it gets stronger the more you engage with it. To help you make this mindset shift part of your daily life, let's explore some practical ways to apply this idea and truly turn challenges into lessons for growth. By doing so, you'll not only approach difficulties with greater calm, but also unlock hidden potential in situations that initially seem like setbacks. One powerful practice is keeping a blessings in disguise journal. This is a space where you can reflect on past challenges and uncover the silver linings they brought into your life. At the end of each day, or even just once a week, take 10 minutes to write about a difficulty you faced and ask yourself, what came out of this situation that was positive? What did I learn from it, or how did it help me grow? For example, maybe you went through a tough breakup. At the time, it felt overwhelming and painful, but looking back, you might realize it helped you rediscover your independence, prioritize your well-being, or better understand what you truly need in a relationship. By documenting these hidden blessings, you train your brain to see challenges differently, not as things to avoid, but as valuable opportunities for transformation. Another powerful question you can ask when faced with a challenge in the moment is, what can I learn from this situation? Life's obstacles are often our greatest teachers, but only if we're willing to look for the lesson. Let's say you've lost a personal opportunity. Maybe you didn't get the job you were hoping for, or weren't accepted into a program you worked hard for. Instead of dwelling on disappointment, ask yourself, What can I take away from this experience? Maybe it's an opportunity to refine your approach, develop new skills, or even discover an entirely different path you hadn't considered. Sometimes being redirected by life isn't a failure. It's a way of being nudged towards something better suited for you. The very act of looking for lessons shifts your focus from what went wrong to how you can grow. Here's an example of how reframing worked for someone in a tangible way. Imagine an entrepreneur whose business venture didn't succeed. At first, it's easy to see this as a total loss, a waste of time, effort, and resources. But instead of labeling it as a failure, they chose to see the experience as a masterclass in resilience. They learned what didn't work, gained new insights about their industry, and discovered strengths they didn't know they had, like problem solving under pressure. When they started their next venture, those hard-earned lessons became the foundation for their success. Losing the first opportunity didn't end their journey, it became an essential part of it. If journaling or reflecting in the moment feels too abstract, try reframing through action. When you encounter a challenge, take one proactive step to turn it into a growth opportunity. For example, if a coworker criticizes your work, instead of getting defensive, view their comments as a chance to refine your skills or improve your communication. By acting on the insight gained from reframing, you reinforce the habit of turning setbacks into stepping stones. Now, let's make this personal. Take a moment to reflect on a recent challenge you faced, something that felt frustrating, disappointing, or even overwhelming at the time. Maybe it was an unexpected change in plans, a disagreement with a loved one, or a missed opportunity. Ask yourself, what could this situation be teaching me? How did it help me grow, or what strength did it bring out in me? Even if the lesson isn't immediately obvious, the act of searching for one can shift your perspective. This small but powerful habit can turn setbacks into some of the most meaningful moments of your life. Reframing isn't about pretending everything is perfect or glossing over real struggles. It's about finding alignment with reality, seeing challenges as part of the natural flow of life, and choosing to respond to them in a way that fosters growth. With practices like journaling, asking what you can learn, or taking proactive steps, you'll soon notice how your mindset begins to shift. Instead of resisting life's obstacles, you'll start to embrace them as opportunities to build resilience, strength, and wisdom. And that's the essence of Stoic peace, not a life free from challenges, but a life where challenges become the way forward. When we think about what it means to live a truly peaceful and fulfilling life, we often look outside ourselves for the answer. We chase success, approval, security, but according to the Stoics, the path to genuine peace doesn't come from external achievements or circumstances. It comes from living a life rooted in virtue. For the Stoics, virtue wasn't just a lofty ideal or abstract concept. It was the foundation of everything: courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance. These four pillars were seen as the cornerstones of a good life, and aligning your actions with these virtues was the key to inner harmony. Let's start with a bit of history. The Stoics believed that virtue was the highest good, surpassing wealth, pleasure, or even health. For them, achieving virtue was what made life meaningful, regardless of external circumstances. Take Marcus Aurelius, for example, who ruled as a Roman emperor during times of war, political unrest, and personal hardship. Despite the chaos around him, Marcus consistently returned to the idea that what truly mattered wasn't what was happening in the world, but how he conducted himself within it. He reminded himself, and us through his writings, that no amount of external success or failure could compare to living with integrity and staying true to your values. But what does it mean to live with virtue in practical terms? It's about making decisions based on the principles of courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance. Let's break those down. Courage means standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Justice is about treating others fairly and acting with consideration for the greater good. Wisdom involves seeking knowledge, using reason, and making thoughtful choices. And temperance is about self-control, not being ruled by impulses or desires, but keeping a balanced perspective. When you align your actions with these virtues, something remarkable happens. Your internal conflicts begin to fade. How often do we feel torn or restless because our actions don't line up with our values? Maybe you've taken a shortcut at work that didn't feel right, or you said something in anger that you later regretted. These moments when we stray from who we know we want to be create tension within us. But when we live in harmony with our values, when we choose courage over fear, justice over selfishness, wisdom over thoughtlessness, and temperance over excess, there's a sense of peace that comes from knowing we're acting in alignment with what truly matters. Let's bring this idea to life with an example. Suppose you're faced with a challenging decision at work, perhaps taking responsibility for a mistake that no one else noticed. The easy route might be to avoid it, to let it slide and move on. But deep down, you'd likely feel that pang of unease because the choice doesn't align with the virtue of justice or courage. Now imagine you take the harder route, owning up to the mistake, even though it might cost you some discomfort in the moment. While this choice requires courage, it also brings peace because it's rooted in integrity. You've acted according to your values, and that's how inner harmony is cultivated. This is what the Stoics meant when they said that virtue transcends external circumstances. You could lose your job, face criticism, or encounter adversity, but if you've acted virtuously, you'll still have the one thing no one can take from you: a clear conscience and a sense of inner strength. It's worth noting that the Stoics didn't see virtue as perfection. They understood that humans are fallible and that striving for virtue is an ongoing practice. But every choice, big or small, is an opportunity to bring your actions more in line with your values. Over time, these choices build a life of integrity, a life where your peace doesn't depend on the twists and turns of the external world, but on the steady compass of your inner virtue. So the next time you're faced with a decision, ask yourself, what would courage, justice, wisdom, or temperance look like in this moment? It's not always easy. Virtue often requires effort and sacrifice, but the reward is worth it. Because when you live in accordance with virtue, you're not just building a peaceful life, you're building a meaningful one, and in the Stoic view, that's the highest good. Seneca, one of the most eloquent voices of Stoic philosophy, once said, "No man can have a peaceful life who thinks too much about lengthening it rather than living it rightly." It's a simple yet profound reminder that the quality of how we live, rooted in virtue, matters far more than how long we live or how much we achieve outwardly. The Stoics repeatedly emphasized that peace and fulfillment come not from extending our days or chasing external measures of success, but from aligning ourselves with what is right, just, and meaningful. And this idea of living rightly is tightly connected to the concept of virtue. Let's think about what happens when we let go of this pursuit of lengthening life or chasing superficial goals and instead prioritize making virtue-driven decisions. When our choices come from a place of integrity and wisdom, life becomes surprisingly simpler. Why? Because virtue-driven actions free us from the clutter of regrets, guilt, or moral conflict. The weight of bad decisions, those moments when we cut corners, act selfishly, or betray our values, can linger in our minds for years, eroding our peace. But when you choose to live rightly, you eliminate the inner turmoil that comes from wondering, should I have done something differently? Did I act in a way that reflects the person I want to be? Consider a situation where you're faced with a moral dilemma. Let's say you're presented with an opportunity to take credit for a project at work that wasn't entirely your effort. The temptation is real. It could fast-track your reputation and potentially earn you a raise. In the moment, it might seem like an easy win, but what happens later? When your actions are misaligned with your values, there's a cost. You might reap the short-term rewards, but the discomfort of knowing you've acted dishonestly can linger in your thoughts, creating a sense of unease that's hard to shake. Now imagine you approach the same situation with a virtue-driven mindset. You choose fairness and honesty by giving credit where it's due, even if it means you don't receive the sole spotlight. It might feel harder in the short term, perhaps even risky, but the long-term results are far more rewarding. You walk away with a clear conscience, knowing you've upheld your values. There are no complicated lies to maintain, no guilt following you home at night, and no fear of being exposed. In choosing to live rightly, you've prioritized peace of mind over temporary gain, and that's a trade-off the Stoics would argue is always worth making. Virtue-driven decisions also simplify life because they provide a clear framework for navigating challenges. Instead of agonizing over choices or chasing outcomes beyond your control, you can guide your actions using the Stoic principles of courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance. When faced with a difficult situation, you can ask yourself, what does justice require here? What would courage look like in this moment? How can I use wisdom to make the best decision? This clarity saves you from the mental gymnastics of second-guessing yourself later. When your actions are rooted in virtue, there's no need to constantly revisit or justify them. They stand on their own. And here's the real beauty of Seneca's insight. Living rightly doesn't just benefit you. It ripples outward into every area of your life. By living with integrity, you earn the trust and respect of those around you. By practicing justice, you create fairness and harmony in your relationships. By cultivating courage, you set an example of strength for others. And by exercising wisdom, you make decisions that benefit not only yourself but also the greater good. When your life is guided by virtue, you don't just simplify your own inner world, you contribute to a more peaceful and balanced outer world as well. So the next time you're faced with a tough decision or feel tempted to compromise your values for a quick advantage, remember Seneca's words: peace doesn't come from stretching life out or cutting ethical corners. It comes from living in alignment with what's right. In the end, the most fulfilling life isn't necessarily the longest or the easiest, it's the one lived with virtue at its core. That's the path to true, lasting peace. Let's bring this idea of living with virtue into the real world. The Stoics didn't just philosophize about virtue, they practiced it daily, weaving it into the fabric of their everyday actions. And the beauty of their approach is that it isn't about monumental, life-changing events. It's about small, consistent decisions that align with courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance. These are choices you can make every day in ordinary situations to build a life rooted in virtue and ultimately inner peace. Let's start with courage. Courage is often associated with grand acts, running into a burning building, speaking up in a public forum. But in reality, courage shows up in the small, quiet moments too. It's about doing what's right even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. Take, for example, standing up for a friend or colleague who's being treated unfairly. Maybe someone is being left out of a conversation or not given credit for their contribution at work. Courage in that moment could look like speaking up, even if it makes you feel uneasy. It's not about being fearless. Courage is about acting despite fear, knowing that doing what's right matters more than seeking comfort. Now let's consider justice. Justice at its core is about fairness and treating others with the respect and dignity they deserve. One meaningful way to practice justice daily is through small acts of kindness. Maybe you hold the door open for someone with full hands or go out of your way to help a stranger in need, like offering directions or helping them pick up something they dropped. Justice can also involve checking in with how your own actions impact others. For instance, if you've unintentionally hurt someone, justice means owning up to it and making amends. These small moments may seem insignificant, but they're powerful acts of alignment with virtue, and they ripple outward, creating a sense of fairness and connection in your community. Next is temperance, the virtue of balance and self-control. In today's world, where distractions and indulgences seem to be everywhere, temperance is more important and challenging than ever. Practicing temperance might look like choosing mindfulness over overindulgence. For instance, the next time you're scrolling on your phone endlessly or reaching for another helping of food when you're already full, pause and ask yourself, am I acting out of habit or am I choosing this intentionally? Temperance isn't about deprivation, it's about exercising thoughtful restraint so you can focus on what truly matters. Maybe you decide to set your phone aside during dinner so you can fully engage with your loved ones, or you choose to stop eating when you're satisfied, savoring what you've already enjoyed. These small acts of self-control add up to a life of greater clarity and balance. Finally, let's not forget wisdom, the virtue that ties them all together. Wisdom is the ability to discern the right course of action in any given situation. Practicing wisdom might involve pausing before reacting to a difficult situation, giving yourself a moment to think through the consequences of your actions. For example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, your initial reaction might be anger, but wisdom encourages you to pause, reflect, and respond calmly, recognizing that reacting emotionally won't change the situation and might only make things worse. Wisdom, in this sense, is about acting with intention rather than impulse. Here's a practical takeaway for you. This week, choose one virtue to focus on cultivating. Maybe it's courage, finding moments to speak up or take on challenges that push you out of your comfort zone. Or justice, looking for ways to contribute to fairness or kindness in the lives of those around you. Temperance might mean exercising thoughtful restraint, whether it's in your habits, diet, or distractions. Or perhaps wisdom, pausing to reflect on your actions and seeking the most thoughtful approach to each situation. Write it down, keep it in mind throughout the week, and look for opportunities, big or small, to put that virtue into practice. The Stoics believed that virtue isn't something we develop overnight. It's something we cultivate moment by moment through our choices. And the incredible thing about this practice is that every small step you take in the direction of virtue strengthens your character and brings you closer to a life of inner peace. So, as you go about your days this week, remember, every decision is a chance to align yourself with the virtues of courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. Start small, stay consistent, and watch how these practices begin to transform your perspective and your life. The Stoics introduced a profound and transformative concept called Ama Fati, which translates to love of fate. More than just acceptance, Ama Fati is about embracing everything that happens in life, not only the pleasant moments but also the trials and hardships, seeing it all as necessary and ultimately good for you. It's a practice of aligning yourself so fully with reality that you don't just tolerate what happens, you welcome it, even when it's difficult. Why? Because every twist and turn, every success and setback is part of the tapestry of your life. And when you stop resisting what is and start loving it instead, you free yourself from suffering and discover a deep, unshakable peace. To truly understand the power of Ama Fati, let's look at the story of Viktor Frankl. Frankl, a renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, faced unimaginable adversity during his years in Nazi concentration camps. He lost his family, endured unimaginable suffering, and was stripped of everything he held dear. Yet, in the depths of this despair, he discovered something remarkable: the ability to find meaning even in the harshest of conditions. Frankl chose to believe that his suffering was part of a greater purpose, an opportunity to develop inner strength and help others see that even the worst circumstances can hold value. In his book Man's Search for Meaning he wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This, in essence, is Ama Fati *." Frankl didn't just endure his fate, he embraced it as a necessary part of his journey, and in doing so, found the strength to thrive. So, what does this mean for us in our daily lives? At its heart, Ama Fati is about relinquishing the struggle against things we cannot change. It's about letting go of "why did this happen to me?" and replacing it with "how can I grow from this?" Imagine you're facing a challenging situation, perhaps a health issue, the end of a relationship, or a sudden career setback. Your instinct might be to resist, to wish things were different, or to remain fixated on what you've lost. But resistance often only amplifies our suffering. Ama Fati invites us to take a different approach. Instead of fighting reality, we can welcome it as a critical part of our personal growth, even if it's painful in the moment. This doesn't mean pretending something isn't hard or unfair. It means trusting that the experience, however challenging, is shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Let's make this concept practical. Start small by practicing Ama Fati with minor inconveniences. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, a situation that's outside of your control. Instead of getting frustrated, could you see it as an opportunity? Maybe it's a chance to listen to a podcast, reflect on an idea, or simply practice patience. The point isn't to force gratitude where it doesn't feel natural, it's to gently remind yourself that even this moment has value. The more you practice with smaller frustrations, the easier it becomes to apply the mindset to more significant challenges. One powerful way to cultivate Ama Fati is by reflecting on the idea that your life, is a masterpiece. Every brush stroke, every shade of light and shadow contributes to the whole picture. Even seemingly bad moments are part of the larger story that makes you who you are. Marcus Aurelius, reflecting on this, wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." In other words, life's challenges are the fuel that can help you shine brighter, if you choose to embrace them as part of your path. Practicing Ama Fati doesn't mean passively accepting everything that happens or giving up on improving your circumstances. It's about meeting life with openness and gratitude, trusting that every experience is here to teach you something valuable. When you adopt this mindset, you stop fighting fate and start flowing with it. And in that flow, you discover a kind of peace that's not dependent on external conditions, but grounded in your ability to see the beauty in even the most difficult moments. Life doesn't have to go perfectly for you to love it. It just has to be yours. That's the gift of Ama Fati, welcoming everything, loving your story, and thriving through it all. Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs. This timeless quote from Marcus Aurelius perfectly encapsulates the Stoic principle of Ama Fati, the love of fate. It's the idea that everything we encounter in life, whether joyful or painful, whether expected or undeserved, is intricately woven into a larger pattern that's uniquely ours. And perhaps most powerfully, this perspective challenges us to view every one of these experiences, not just the pleasant ones, as something that fits us, something that serves a purpose in shaping who we are. On the surface, this might sound idealistic. After all, how can painful experiences, bad luck, or even moments of failure be seen as things that fit our needs? But this is where the genius of Marcus's wisdom lies. The beauty of Ama Fati is not in denying the difficulty of life's challenges. It's in choosing to see those challenges as a valuable and necessary part of the patterns that make up our destiny. It's not about passive resignation or pretending everything is perfect. It's about radical acceptance. Modern psychology even mirrors this idea in practices like mindfulness and acceptance-based therapies, which emphasize the importance of fully acknowledging reality rather than being consumed by resistance to it. Let's take a relatable example. Imagine you've experienced a career setback. Maybe you were passed over for a promotion you worked tirelessly toward. The initial reaction, understandably, might be frustration, disappointment, or even resentment. Why did this happen to me is a question most of us would naturally ask. But Marcus Aurelius invites us to ask a different question. What if this moment is exactly what I need? What if this setback is woven into your destiny because it's meant to teach you perseverance, redirect you toward a better opportunity, or help you build strength for a future challenge? When viewed through the lens of Ama Fati, this moment stops being just a disappointment and becomes a thread in a larger, meaningful pattern. Modern concepts of radical acceptance align beautifully with this. In radical acceptance, you don't deny your feelings or avoid the situation. Instead, you acknowledge it fully. This is what's happening right now, and I accept it even if it's not what I want. Think of it like releasing the mental tug of war between wishing things were different and actually dealing with the reality before you. It's the act of shifting from resistance to engagement. And when combined with the Stoic principle of Ama Fati, this acceptance goes one step further. It becomes not just tolerance but appreciation. This moment is part of my path, and it's here to teach me something. Let's revisit Marcus's words. For what could more aptly fit your needs? This question encourages us to trust the process of life. It's a reminder that the universe, in some mysterious way, is guiding us through experiences specifically suited to shape us into who we're meant to become. Even the hardships, as painful as they may be, have a role in refining our character. Picture a sculptor chiseling a block of marble. The process is rough, loud, and often uncomfortable for the stone. But every hammer strike, every fragment that falls away, is necessary to reveal the masterpiece hidden within. Ama Fati is about seeing our challenges in the same way as the chisels shaping us into something greater. For practical application, try this exercise. The next time you face an unexpected difficulty, pause and reflect on Marcus's words. Ask yourself, how could this experience be fitting my needs even if I can't see it clearly yet? What might this moment be teaching me, or how could it be preparing me for the future? By doing this, you create space to shift your mindset from resistance to gratitude. This doesn't mean you'll immediately love every challenge, but it helps cultivate a sense of peace, knowing that life's ups and downs both play a role in your growth. Ultimately, Ama Fati is about embracing life in its entirety, the joys, the struggles, and everything in between. It's about replacing why me with why not me. And trusting that every thread in the tapestry of your life belongs there. Marcus Aurelius's words are a call to recognize that the path we're walking, no matter how winding, is uniquely ours and fits us perfectly. When we truly embrace this mindset, we find beauty not only in the high points of life but also in its most challenging moments. And in doing so, we inch closer to the inner peace that Stoicism promises. Let's take the idea of Ama Fati, the love of fate, and explore how we can apply it practically in our daily lives. Because while it's inspiring to think about accepting everything that happens as part of our unique path, living this philosophy takes practice. It's not always easy to welcome life's difficulties or see the value in setbacks, but with intentional exercises, we can begin to train our minds to embrace fate, no matter what it brings. One powerful way to practice Ama Fati is by mentally preparing for worst-case scenarios. The Stoics referred to this as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. It's the practice of imagining what could go wrong, not to dwell on negativity or create anxiety, but to build resilience and acceptance. For example, before heading to the airport for a flight, you might take a moment to consider, what if my flight gets delayed? What if I miss my connection? By mentally walking through these possibilities, you strip them of their power to disrupt your peace. You remind yourself that these events are inconvenient but not catastrophic, and they don't have to ruin your day unless you let them. This exercise helps you feel prepared for whatever happens, making it easier to respond calmly and rationally if those obstacles arise. Let's put this into practice with a real-world scenario. Imagine you've arrived at the airport and sure enough, your flight is delayed. Without Ama Fati, the delay could feel like a massive inconvenience. You might feel frustrated, impatient, or even angry, replaying thoughts like, why does this always happen to me? But with Ama Fati in mind, you can reframe the situation. Instead of seeing the delay as something that's ruining your day, you can view it as part of your unique journey. Ask yourself, what can I make of this extra time? Maybe it's an opportunity to catch up on a book you've been meaning to read, call a loved one, or simply take a moment to pause and reflect. The event itself hasn't changed, but your perception of it has, and that shift can make all the difference. Another practice that helps cultivate Ama Fati is gratitude, not just for life's joys but also for its difficulties. Take a few moments each day to reflect on one challenging experience you faced and ask yourself, what did this teach me? How has it helped me grow? For instance, maybe you recently had a conflict with a friend. While the disagreement may have been uncomfortable, it could also have revealed areas in your relationship that needed deeper communication or understanding. Practicing gratitude for these moments doesn't mean dismissing the difficulty. It means appreciating what it has contributed to your growth. Over time, this habit trains your mind to see challenges as meaningful parts of your journey, not just obstacles to be endured. Here's an exercise to try. At the end of the day, write down 3 things you experienced, 1 pleasant, 1 neutral, and 1 challenging. For each, reflect on what it added to your day or taught you. For example, the pleasant walk I took helped me connect with nature, or the long lines at the grocery store taught me patience. Even small moments can offer rich lessons when viewed through the lens of Ama Fati. Now let's make it personal. Take a moment to think about a current situation in your life that feels frustrating or difficult. Maybe it's a project at work that's not going as planned, a relationship that feels strained, or even a goal you've been struggling to reach. Ask yourself, how could I embrace this as part of my path? What might it be teaching me? How can I love this experience, even if it's not what I expected or wanted? Reflecting on these questions doesn't mean the situation instantly becomes easy, but it opens the door to finding meaning and peace within it. The beauty of Ama Fati is that it's a practice. You don't have to get it right every time, and you don't have to suddenly love every challenge life throws your way. What matters is the effort, the conscious choice to look at life through a lens of acceptance and gratitude. As you practice this mindset, even in small, everyday moments like a delayed flight or a tough conversation, you'll notice that life's difficulties no longer feel like interruptions. Instead, they become opportunities to grow, moments to embrace, and pieces of the larger tapestry that is uniquely yours. And in that, you'll discover a deeper, lasting sense of peace. We've now explored 3 of the most common traps that steal our peace: the futile pursuit of control, the weight of attachment, and the harm of judgment. Each of these traps can quietly but persistently pull us away from living a calm, fulfilled life. But as the Stoics taught us, the key to reclaiming our peace lies in the way we think. How we choose to approach the inevitable challenges of life with clarity, resilience, and wisdom. First, let's revisit the trap of control. How often do we waste precious energy trying to bend the world to our will, only to find ourselves frustrated when things don't go as planned? The Stoic solution is simple but profound. Focus on what's within your control and release your grip on the rest. Epictetus reminds us that we can master only our own thoughts, actions, and attitudes, not the traffic, the opinions of others, or the randomness of life. When we embrace this distinction and let go of the uncontrollable, we create space for peace and a sense of freedom. Then there's attachment. It's human to desire things, success, material comfort, love, but when we tie our happiness to these impermanent pleasures, they begin to own us. The Stoics teach us to enjoy the things we have without clinging to them, to recognize their impermanence while appreciating their presence. As Seneca said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. True peace comes not from accumulating more, but from living with gratitude and embracing the simple joy of enough. And finally, we looked at judgment. How often do we allow our assumptions about others, situations, or even ourselves to create unnecessary emotional turmoil? The Stoics urge us to suspend those judgments, to separate facts from interpretations, and to approach life with neutrality and compassion. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that it's not the event that disturbs us, but rather our opinion of it. When we learn to pause and reframe, we free ourselves from the mental stories that can so easily disrupt our inner harmony. Together, these three principles, understanding what's within our control, releasing attachment, and reframing judgments, create a powerful philosophy of resilience and peace. They teach us to live in alignment with life as it is, not as we wish it to be. And when we embrace this way of thinking, we discover that peace isn't something to chase, it's something we cultivate within ourselves. So here's a parting thought to leave you with, inspired by the timeless wisdom of Epictetus. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things he has not, but rejoices for those he has. It's a reminder that peace is already within your reach. It's not found in controlling every outcome, holding tightly to impermanent things, or clinging to judgments. It's found in gratitude, acceptance, and the ability to see challenges as opportunities. Before we close, I invite you to reflect which of these traps, control, attachment, or judgment, resonates most with you. Have you found yourself trying to control the uncontrollable, clinging too tightly to what you have, or making assumptions that create unnecessary stress? And how might the wisdom of the Stoics help you approach those moments differently? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how these ideas connect with your life and where you might begin to practice these principles. If you found value in this video, consider subscribing for more Stoic insights and reflections. And if there's someone in your life who could benefit from a little Stoic wisdom, feel free to share this with them too. Together, we can all take small, meaningful steps toward a more peaceful, resilient life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and remember, the peace you seek is already